A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. I am very happy to welcome you to a brand new webinar series, the first episode of its kind titled Why Corporate Sector. This webinar is the 11th BSL webinar for 2025-2026 and is a part of the 5th webinar series. The webinars are conducted on the Zoom platform, and for those who are unable to register on Zoom, could also join us by watching the live stream on the BSL YouTube channel. This webinar series is organized by the Webinars and Legal Symposiums Committee of the BASL. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Chairman of the Webinars and Legal Symposiums Committee and the President of BASL, Mr. Rajiv Amarasuriya, Attorney at Law, whose brainchild the BASL webinar series is, and the co-chairman, Mr. Chatra A. Galhena, Secretary of BASL, and Mr. Pasindu Silva, Treasurer of BASL, and the conveners, co-conveners, and the members of the Webinars and Legal Symposiums Committee of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. I would also like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the Executive Committee of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka for all the support and guidance. In today's episode of Why Corporate Sector, we have with us an esteemed guest whose career expands beyond the legal sphere. He is none other than Mr. Suresh Perera, Attorney at Law. Mr. Perera is the head of tax at KPMG, and he is a multidisciplinary professional specializing in taxation with accounting, legal, company secretarial qualifications, and practical experience. Mr. Suresh Perera is an attorney at law of the Supreme Court of Sri Lanka, LLB holder, and a fellow of Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, UK. He was formerly a member of CIMA Global Council, Sri Lanka CIMA Board, and AICPA Mesana BOA. Mr. Perera is also a KPMG MECAC Tax Steering Group member and has won the Tax Practice Leader of the Year for 2024 for the Asia Pacific region. This was announced at the ITR, EMA, and Asia Pacific Regional Awards in 2024. He was also shortlisted for the Tax Litigation and Disputes Practice Leader of the Year for the Asia Pacific region. Mr. Suresh Perera is also the chairman of the Tax Committee of the Bar Association of Sri Lanka. He is a visiting lecturer for the LLM degree program at the Faculty of Law, University of Colombo, and he is also a lecturer in the module of tax at many institutions for tax exams, including CIMA and Chartered Accountants. I warmly welcome Mr. Suresh Perera for our today's session. Without much further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Shehara Herath, who will be the interviewer for today's session, to take over. Over to you, Shehara.
Thank you so much, Isuri. And once again, I would like to welcome all of you on behalf of the BASL who are joining in for today's program. So the topic today is why the corporate sector? Because we would like to firstly give a small introduction as to why this webinar series was initiated by the BASL. Today, the legal sphere, or getting a legal qualification, has become one of the most versatile qualifications a person can get. A lawyer who has a legal qualification has they have performed extremely well in many spheres, including politics, including the legal sphere itself. Let it be the corporate sector, let it be the academics, let it be the military, let it be the diplomatic sphere, so on and so forth. So with this idea in mind, the corporates are now opening up their doors for more legal professionals to come into their sector, more legal professionals to move into the corporate sector. And if you look at the board of directors of most of the major corporations in Sri Lanka, you would see that a considerable number of people are lawyers or LLB holders. So because of this, there is a huge demand for lawyers in the corporate sector, and we would like to see more and more young lawyers, more and more law students showing keen interest in joining the corporate sector. And of course, just like any other sector, the corporate sector also has its challenges. So to talk about all of this, we are happy to welcome once again Mr. Suresh Perera. He's not a new face at the BSL. He has been a very active member of the BSL for so long, while maintaining his high ranks in the corporate sector. So my first question to you, sir, is what is your opinion about lawyers joining in the joining into the corporate sector? Do you see a lot of lawyers coming into the corporate sector? Do you see a lot of job opportunities in the corporate sector? And, what are the opportunities available for a young aspiring lawyer?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so let me begin by thanking the Bar Association for inviting me to join this inaugural webinar with regard to the corporate sector. Yes, so there are many opportunities in the corporate sector, as you mentioned. In fact, it's not the case of many opportunities. There's much law professionals, legal professionals. Is a category that is much needed in the corporate sector with regard to the type of work that takes place in the corporate sector. So yes, so it's an interesting area for any aspiring junior lawyer to map his professional career. So when you look at the areas, when you say corporate section, I think the first thing that comes into the mind is, okay, join a law firm as an associate and then gain experience, and thereafter map his career from there onwards to join the mercantile sector. So when you say corporate also, we are thinking of areas not in relation to litigation, not the courtroom practice. So with that area, if you look at and trying to segregate into different aspects, okay, you have the law firms, and then you have the mercantile sector, then you have the government service, the government authorities. So there are many areas, as you mentioned, the armed forces, all that. So it's a vast area. So a junior lawyer who is mapping his career, starting his career at the beginning, must should analyze his or her own liking first. What do I want to do, basically, to get into how to join a law firm and solve the legal issues, the problems of the other people, or is it basically join a firm, join a mercantile firm like a bank and work in the legal division, or maybe sometimes add another qualification, say an accountancy qualification, and go into other relevant areas like investment banking, corporate finance. That is also a very very interesting area for a lawyer. And then, of course, the traditional other areas other than the traditional legal division of a company, that is the HR division, human resources division of a company. That is also an area of a lawyer can expect to go up in the ladder there. So you will have to mix your legal qualification with an HR qualification. That will be definitely helpful to go up in the HR ladder. And marketing is also another area that lawyers are looking at nowadays. And then the real estate divisions or real estate arena is also another area that once people are looking at. Then, of course, when it comes to the concept of compliance, in a bank, we do have this category called the compliance officers. So that is also an area that the lawyers can look at. And not only in banks, even in other companies also, the concept of compliance officer is a common thing, and mapping his or her career in that area is also an interesting area. Then when you say corporate lawyers, you do have different categories. You have the intellectual property lawyers, and then you have the banking lawyers, as I mentioned earlier, property lawyers or the real estate lawyers. Then the labor and employment, which is connected to the HR, is also an area that we can look at. And then we do have, again, another path that is basically to get into research, say in universities, academic research, or working in a research institution, carrying out research with regard to the legal arena. And of course, tax, everyone is aware, but in addition to tax, customs is also another body of another area lawyers can specialize in. And then you have other areas like the insurance, and then the securities law, that is basically law pertaining to, let's say, listing of companies, the stock exchange, Security and Exchange Commission, that area. And Then, of course, we find lawyers in NGOs. That is also area that people are looking at. And as I mentioned, the government authorities and the government corporations. So those are the opportunities that the lawyers can specialize in. And nowadays, specifically, information technology. That is also up and coming area, hot area that the lawyers should look at.
Thank you, sir. And if a lawyer is particularly interested in, joining the corporate sector, entering a company or an NGO, as you mentioned, in your opinion, I mean, you're a lawyer with years of experience behind you. In your opinion, what do you think, what skills do they think they should master if they want to enter the corporate sector?
Yes, of course. Now, if you are basically looking at a courtroom practice, then you have to be a lawyer that could articulate very well. So, but that comes from your personality, that comes to your practice. But of course, when it comes to the corporate sector also, okay, articulation of your point is an important area. But when it comes to the corporate sector, you need a different set of skills. So here you need to be able to understand how the commercial world, corporate world is working. So you need to understand commerce, you need to understand economy. Those are important areas. And in addition to that, you should be able to read financial statements. That means the accounts prepared for a company. So that's a very important area, how to read the profit and loss account of a company, how to read the balance sheet of a company, how to get the information. That is an important area. Without that, sometimes a lawyer who is specialized only in law might struggle. So I think that's an area that one should be familiar with. So now how do you get familiarized with these other areas? Now, while you're at the law faculty or the law college, there is no harm in studying another area also. For instance, accountancy, maybe a CIMA, Chartered Institute of Management Accountants exams, or Chartered Institute exams itself, ACCA. So there are so many accountancy exams that are available in Sri Lanka. So while you're at the law faculty, law college, you can parallelly follow these courses also, because that is going to be very useful when you join the corporate sector. So of course, here we have to be mindful. Now, if you're looking at joining the legal division of a company, then sometimes, okay, the legal qualification, either the attorneys at law or the LLB would be sufficient. But if you're looking at going into other areas, definitely you must have a other qualification also. CIMA or Chartered or even MBA kind of a qualification. So my advice is, while you're at the law college, law faculty, start following an accountancy qualification also. Nowadays, of course, you do find many of the law students parallelly studying other qualifications also. So when I say other qualifications, again, I have to mention that it need not be accountancy also. Maybe the preferred area that you want to go into. If you're looking at becoming IT lawyer, maybe following a IT course also may be helpful. If you're hoping to go into the employment law or HR division, then the HR qualification would also be useful. So depending on the area that you're hoping to go into, look at what are the qualifications that are there in that particular area. So getting the basic idea with regard to those areas will also be useful. Of course, it's not only the qualifications, right? So if you get the opportunity when you're below 23, 24, try to gain experience also. So if you're looking at, again, going into tax or into investment banking, corporate finance, that kind of areas, it will be helpful to work in a, I would say, audit firm as a trainee or as an associate or whatever. Because when you work in an audit firm, you get the exposure to work in many companies. You get to know the control systems, how the business operations are being carried out, etc. So you get an insight with regard to the corporates also. So that's an opportunity you should grab when you are young. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. And I think the beauty of our legal system is that unlike other professions, a lot of us lawyers and even judges, they engage in continuous legal education. And we see a lot of lawyers going into programs such as LLM getting additional qualifications such as accountancy qualifications, marketing qualifications. Now, you mentioned that a law student or a young lawyer should approach these additional qualifications also if they're interested in getting into the corporate sector. Would you give the same advice for a lawyer who is maybe 5 or 6 years into practice, whether they can, maybe do an LLM in law and business, or, whether they can pursue SIMA maybe 5 years into the practice and then get into the corporate sector?
Okay, very good question. Very good question. So it depends according to your personality. You see, are you in a position to manage your time? Because when you are young, you have enough and more time rather than basically wasting time doing unnecessary things. If you manage your time, you can definitely get through your legal exams as well as law exams as well as your other exams, accountancy exams or maybe HR exams, whatever. But when you reach, let's say 24, 25, that's a time that one thinks of settling down and, so whether you will have time is the question. So if you have time, yes, you can. So it's a case by case thing. Some people can manage time very well and carry and follow another exam while working, while practicing, etc. So it depends. It's a personal thing because no one is too old to acquire qualifications, gain experience, depending on the time. It's how you manage it.
And also, I think now a lot of, earlier it was not in the legal sector. Earlier it was the other, avenues where they looked into employment abroad. But now I think a lot of lawyers are also looking at possible migration abroad. And some lawyers prefer to travel abroad and maybe do the legal qualifications in those countries, such as getting a barrister's in law in the UK or the bar exams in Australia, so on and so forth. So if a young lawyer wants to go in the corporate sector, with your experience, have you seen instances where lawyers in the corporate sector getting opportunities to maybe migrate abroad, to work their way into multinational companies, to work their way into multinational non-governmental organizations, so on and so forth?
Yes, so it's again a good question. So when you're young, when you're mapping your career, this is again a point that you have to keep in mind. So if you are planning to go abroad, life is not predictable. So when you are young, it's always better to keep your options open and collect the qualifications. Keep in mind that life can take you anywhere. So basically acquiring an international qualification like SIMA when you are young, I think is a prudent thing because that would help you to, when you're migrating, it's going to be very helpful. So the question that you asked, can a lawyer with qualifications with only legal qualifications, say attorneys and LLB, can expect to migrate? I still would say yes, you can, because these qualifications are respected a lot outside Sri Lanka. So when you go to that particular country, okay, you will have to acquire the license to practice in that country if you're going to practice at the same, or if you're going to join the mercantile sector again in that country, to get an idea with regard to the laws that are applicable in that country, you may have to follow the corresponding legal qualification in that country also. So yes, a little bit of adaptation may be required, but yes, you do have the opportunity to map your career outside Sri Lanka also. Now, I have to say this thing here. Now, if you are looking at migrating with a legal qualification, the company that you work in Sri Lanka is also important. So for instance, if you work in a multinational company, in the CV, you're going to see the name of that multinational company. And when you go for interviews in the other country, you're going to get weight with regard to the company that you have worked in Sri Lanka. So when it's a multinational, I'm not going to name anything, multinational companies, it's going to helpful. So two things. When you are young, if you are thinking of going out of Sri Lanka someday, then try to add an international qualification, and also try to get the opportunity, your learning opportunities, your working opportunities in a multinational company also.
Yes, and like I said at the beginning, all of these opportunities will always come with certain challenges. In your view, what are the challenges a legal professional would face when they join the corporate sector and maybe, hold ranks such as, being a manager of a company or, having positions in a corporate company?
Okay, I'll put it like this way. So when you pass out from the law college, and when you go to work in a chamber, law chamber, you always have your seniors to guide you. You learn from your seniors. But when you leave your seniors or the chamber and join the mercantile sector, you won't have that much of assistance coming your way. You need to navigate the path on your own. You will not have somebody above you, very rarely, that you will find a person above you who will teach you. So you have to learn things on your own. So now this is important because the legal field is a very dynamic field and the laws keep changing. So what you learned at the law college or the law faculty may not be sufficient for you to survive when you go to the corporate sector. So you need to do your continuous learning. So, and not just the theories, basically the other practical things also. So ability to adapt is a very important feature when you enter the corporate sector. So that's the main challenge that you will have. And also you have to keep in mind, once you join the corporate sector, you have to learn other things also. It's not just the law. Sometimes even a simple thing like how to operate a photocopy machine is an important aspect. Uh, so how to basically nowadays, how to say that, technology is changing. So how to adapt the technology, how to use the systems that are there in that particular company or the network, etc. So those are very important things. Those are challenges. And you need to adapt those skills. For instance, simple things like how to use a Microsoft Word package, how to use the PowerPoint presentations, how to use Excel sheets. Now, those specific skills are very important when you're joining the corporate sector.
Thank you, sir. And now moving on to a field which you are an expert in, tax law. Now, Sri Lanka is, the talking a lot about taxes these days, and more people are opening up tax files, and we see more litigation concerning taxation in Sri Lanka. So if a lawyer is interested in joining the field of taxation, being a tax lawyer, or joining a company which specializes in taxation, what skills do they need to acquire and what qualifications do they need to acquire?
Yeah, let me put it this way before going there. So those days, our parents used to say that, okay, they wanted to make us doctors, lawyers, engineers. Tax consultants, never. But now I say the situation in Sri Lanka is such, your first priority should be to become a tax consultant. Because to learn tax, at least even if you're not going to get into the tax consultancy, you need to learn the taxes, because now the extent to which the tax is important in your life, all of us can see this. No, so basically, how do I say this now? Because of the economic situation the country is in, we will see more and more taxes being introduced in Sri Lanka. So taxes, whether it's a company or whether it's in relation to your own property, whether it's in relation to your own earnings, tax is going to be very, very important. So learning tax is an important thing. So because of this, there's a huge demand that will be there for tax consultants in Sri Lanka. Need not be tax consultants for advising multinationals and the corporates, but to give advice to the general public, the normal people. So there is a big demand for knowledge with regard to tax awareness that should come from the professionals. So there is a big scope, even in Sri Lanka, for the next during the next 10-15 years with regard to tax consultants. So tax consultancy is a good area for a lawyer to focus on. So as I said, if you are planning to enter the field of taxation, my advice is when you are young, do a accountancy qualification. Could be CIMA, anything. So we have chartered, we have CIMA, we have so many accountancy qualifications, because that is going to give you an idea with regard to, you get a broader picture with regard to taxation. Why? Tax has two aspects. There's a legal aspect where you have to interpret the law, create cases, etc. And then the recording of your tax liability, computation of that tax liability. So you need to have both accountancy and law if you want to excel in taxation. So what I have seen during the last 25 years with regard to the lawyers who have entered the field of taxation, the ones who come with accountancy qualifications do very well. And their performance level, I find, is much greater than the ones who come with either a legal qualification or with just a pure accountancy qualification. So moment you mix both, you have a very good competitive advantage because you understand things better. So my first advice with regard to people who aspire to enter field of taxation is, yes, do add that accountancy qualification also. Nowadays, I find accountants appreciating this aspect, doing legal qualifications. So you can see matured accountants carrying out, studying and acquiring legal qualifications to help their career. So that's the first one. So thereafter, I would say always join another senior person. I would say the easiest thing is to join a audit firm. That is the easiest way to learn taxation and go through the basics. And also, we have to keep in mind, in Sri Lanka, there are so many other tax qualifications. If you take the Institute of Taxation, they have many exams. If you look at the Chartered Accountants, Institute of Chartered Accountants, there are so many tax qualifications that are there, courses that are there. So follow one or two of those courses. That is also going to be very helpful. So nothing like nothing like obtaining hands-on experience, so get into a tax division or work under a tax lawyer and get that experience also. So that's very important. You can't become a tax consultant overnight. It takes time. So you have to learn from the others and do a little bit of hard work at the beginning, but it pays off. Because why I say is this, when you do tax, what are the opportunities that are there? You need not remain at the same place where you start, because the opportunities come from various areas. You get opportunities coming from the mercantile sector, multinational companies. That is if you're looking at Sri Lanka, or maybe you can move out, go back to your, Halsdorf or wherever, and start your own tax practice. You are not going to be restricted to an institution once you acquire the knowledge. So that's something we have to keep in mind. And there's another very important aspect that I need to highlight here in relation to the field of taxation. Say 25 years back, when I started my career, that opportunity was not there. That is what is happening outside Sri Lanka. Nowadays, we find there's a big demand for tax consultants, specifically in the Middle East. Some of you all may have observed the trend, what is happening in the Middle East. There's income tax being introduced, corporate income tax being introduced, there's value-added tax being introduced. Now, last week we saw Oman planning to introduce the personal taxes. So these are large countries, big companies, where they look for tax consultants. So Sri Lankans, there's a big opportunity to explore this area. Traditionally, let's say in the last 10-15 years, what I have noted, Sri Lankan accountants, okay, they've get their qualification, gain the practical experience, and then straight away go to the Middle East to earn. That same opportunity is now open for tax consultants also. So keep in mind, there is a huge opportunity that is opening up for tax professionals outside Sri Lanka. And it is also a good opportunity, good qualification to look into the other countries also, not just the Middle East. Nowadays, the countries like Australia, Canada, UK, in their accountancy firms and in the mercantile sector also, they do recruit tax consultants a lot, because globally also the taxation is getting complicated with many rules being introduced nowadays.
Thank you, sir. And few times you mentioned about the CIMA qualification. Would you specifically mention, that these qualifications are good to
Okay.
acquire, and or there are other or in relation to that, would a person do LLM in maybe business and law or business and taxation? What would you recommend in your experience, sir?
Okay, I actually mentioned SEMA because I did SEMA, but maybe I'm biased towards that. But let me put it there. When I say accountancy, what is required is the knowledge with regard to the accounting standards. So sometimes there may be other, specifically say Institute of Chartered Accountants accountancy qualification has more depth with regard to accounting standards, Sri Lankan accounting standards. So that would be sometimes more relevant than SIMA when it comes to taxation. But what we need here is the basic feel of taxation coming to your, say, legal expertise. That is what we need. So sometimes if you don't have that, I have also seen in the past the lawyers, I call them pure lawyers, who come to the field of taxation, get confused because there is an accountancy aspect, and so people are divided into two baskets. People who can read, people who are good with words and in writing, and the people who are good at numbers, number crunching. So this category of people who are good at writing, good at reading and understanding, I say the writing people, they get intimidated moment number crunching they have to face number crunching. So to get out of that, to be familiar with that, basically you need to have the accountancy knowledge. So that's why I keep saying that. So when you're going to pick a qualification, yes, SEMA is expensive because it's an international qualification. So from that aspect, there are so many other qualifications in Sri Lanka that are not that expensive. So Chartered Institute exam is less expensive. So sometimes it may be a better one, depending on your financial status. And there's certified management accountants qualification also, again, which will be helpful if you are looking at it from the financial angle.
And now, sir, you have been a tax lawyer for many years. What would you tell about your career, and what's your experience handling tax disputes in Sri Lanka? Is it interesting being a tax lawyer? Are there any challenges in being a tax lawyer? What challenges do you have? What opportunities do you have? What interesting aspects of being a tax lawyer are there?
Okay, let me say, what is the scope of tax? When you say tax, basically, sometimes people get either confused or people get frightened. Tax has many dimensions, many areas, right? The first one area is where you sit and calculate the tax liability of the corporates or individuals. That is where the typical accountancy role, using the rules that are applicable, calculating the tax liability of the taxpayers. So sometimes, okay, personally, sometimes you uh, can say it's a boring job, but that is very important, because if you make a mistake, there could be underpayment taxes or overpayment of taxes. So very responsible role. So that's one area. Then the other area is analyzing whether a particular transaction or particular stream of income is liable for taxes. So Sri Lanka, when you say taxes in Sri Lanka, there are direct taxes, say income tax, and there are indirect taxes, say as of now, value-added tax, there is social security contribution levy, and so many taxes that we have in Sri Lanka. So analyzing transactions and deciding the tax impact or the tax liability. Then the third area is tax planning. That is where basically, how to say, like I say, it's like playing chess. You can, when you look at a chess board, if you if you know the chess rules, you can say, okay, I'm a chess player. But at the same time, if I sit with another senior person, another experienced person, when I start playing chess, I might lose the game. I may always lose the game. Why? Because other person has more experience, other person has a better IQ with regard to how to use the rules and come up with a better outcome. So that's the tax planning. So that is also a very fascinating area without violating the rules as to how to save the taxes. So that's not definitely a boring area, right? Then the other part is advocacy. That is where basically not advocacy, I would say basically defending the taxpayers. That is going to the Inland Revenue Department, negotiating with the Inland Revenue officers, putting your client's point to the Inland Revenue Department, and then then there could be a follow-up from there. That is, the assessments are raised, and then you need to appeal and then present the case of your client to maybe the Commissioner General or maybe to the Tax Appeals Commission, etc. Again, so that's another area. So that area normally negotiating with the Inland Revenue Department or representing the client at the Inland Revenue Department, representing the client at the Tax Appeals Commission, writing tax opinions. Lawyers excel in that area. But at the same time, there are multidisciplinary lawyers who do both aspects well. That is basically appeals opinion plus the sitting and doing the tax computations.
And you gave a very interesting brief about being a tax lawyer in Sri Lanka. Are there any challenges for a tax lawyer?
Yes, I would say compared to a corporate lawyer or intellectual property lawyer, the biggest challenge in Sri Lanka, I would say specifically Sri Lanka compared to the other countries, is that Sri Lankan tax rules keep changing very often. Every month you see a rule change taking place. That's why you hear from the business community people say that tax laws are uncertain in Sri Lanka. Every day the rules are changing. Therefore, we can't take investment decisions. Now, think the other side of it. If the rules keep changing, the tax consultant who has to advise the clients have to keep themselves updated. So this is like every day studying new things and analyzing and advising the clients. So as you know, basically if you are studying for exam, last week before the exam is a tough period. Why? Because you have to sit and study and that's a very tense period. But when you're in the field of taxation, all 365 days of the year, one can say are very tense because the speed at which the laws keep changing. So moment the laws keep changing, you need to update yourself. Otherwise, you will not be in a position to help your clients.
Thank you, sir. And now I think we can, before we move on to the question session, I would like to finally ask you, sir, what final advice would you give all the young lawyers who are, joining in or who are watching this on YouTube, and also law students who are, keen in joining the tax sector or the corporate sector? What final advice would you give, sir?
Yeah, so this is very important, I think. When you are young, when you are at the law college, when you are, I would say, before you join the law college or before you join the law faculty, when you say, I want to become a lawyer, what you are telling yourself or what you are telling your friends is that I want to wear the coat, go to courts and argue cases. That is what is meant when you are very young, saying that I want to become a lawyer. But we have to keep in mind there are so many areas in the legal profession that lawyers fit in, that they can do very well. That's basically the corporate sector. So you need to come out of that mind frame. You're going to the law college or the law faculty with the intention of becoming a courtroom lawyer. That is one area. But that is not the only area. So keep your eyes open with regard to the opportunities that are available outside the courtroom also, where you can be a successful professional. So keeping that in mind, when you're young, when you're studying, prepare for that opportunity also. So that is my advice. Now, what I find is in Sri Lanka, okay, when you're at the faculty, when you're at the college, you have a good time with your friends, you acquire the qualification, and then you come out, and thereafter you straight away go to the courtroom practice. So after 2-3 years, you sometimes not just 2-3 years, sometimes good 7-8 years. Thereafter, you move to the corporate sector. That foundation, yes, going to the courts, that is useful. Not that it will go wasted, that is useful. But at the same time, if you spend too many years in the the courtroom and then come to the corporate sector, sometimes you may have to start right from the beginning. In other words, in the seniority ladder in the corporate sector, you may miss your opportunities. So if you are hoping to become a corporate lawyer, my advice is prepare while you are studying while you are pursuing your legal studies, prepare yourself for the preferred sector that you are looking in the corporate sector, and then gain your experience. Legal, what you call courtroom experience is important, and within a short period, move to the corporate sector. And then, because corporate sector means there is always a ladder, so you need to go up that ladder. If you join the ladder fast, you may not be able to. You may have a disadvantage with regard to the disadvantage or a competitive disadvantage if you come late.
Certainly. And now I think it's time to, rather than me asking questions, it's time for our audience to ask questions. So we would be taking any questions anyone has regarding corporate law, regarding entering the corporate sector, regarding entering the field of taxation in Sri Lanka, so on and so forth. So now the floor is open for any questions from any of our participants.
Right, till someone raises a question, I will just speak a little bit with regard to specifically with regard to the taxation. So,
Sure, sir. Yeah.
So tax, that's not taxation is not in a watertight compartment. In other words, there are a few tax statutes in Sri Lanka. Everything with regard to tax is not confined into those statutes, the Inland Revenue Act, the Value Added Tax Act, the Social Security Contribution Act, excess laws, stamp duty, etc. Because interaction between these tax statutes, tax laws, and the other laws are also important. So, for instance, the Companies Act, the Exchange Control rules, administrative law rules, banking, finance, business act, and specifically the interpretation of fiscal statutes, rules, legal maxims. These are also very important. And plus knowledge with regard to the Sri Lankan accounting standards. So there are so many accounting standards, and one has to know these accounting standards also with regard to the taxes. So basically, you need to concentrate those aspects also, focus in relation to those aspects also, in addition to the rules in the tax statutes. So that is important for you to become a good tax consultant. And of course, we have to keep in mind this famous Colvinar de Silva's rule or the code, that is knowing the law is one thing, but most important thing is knowing your judge. Here, basically, your relationship with the Inland Revenue officers and how to negotiate with them, how to convince your point, or when you go to the Tax Appeals Commission, how to tell your story in a very simple manner to the judges, that is important. So again, when you say tax, it does not stop at the Inland Revenue Department and the Tax Appeals Commission. We have to keep in mind in Court of Appeal, the appeals to the court on questions of law, there's appeal from the Tax Appeals Commission to the Court of Appeal, and from the Court of Appeal, there's appeal to the Supreme Court. In addition to that, at the magistrate court level, also tax recovery cases are there. So even in the court structure, court rooms, also there's much to do with taxation. So you may not like the idea of how to say, be confined into a organization, but you still want your normal, how do I say, the interesting, adventurous courtroom practice with regard to that. So still tax is an opportunity in that area also, because there's so much tax disputes taking place in Sri Lanka. So you can even concentrate only in relation to the tax litigation. You're not going to look at tax computations, tax planning, tax diligence, that kind of aspects. So from that aspect also, you are in a different area. Let's say criminal practitioner is practicing in the magistrate court. Knowing the tax laws are going to be helpful, because you still may have work in relation to taxation in the magistrate court level, in the Court of Appeal, in the Supreme Court.
And that brings me to another question. So now recently, the government of Sri Lanka is expanding their tax net, and they are getting more and more people to open up TIN numbers, more and more people to open tax files. They're getting more and more people to pay their income taxes. So do you see that that area also is a very interesting area which might create, I mean, there could be a lot of tax disputes when it comes to the field of income tax in Sri Lanka.
Correct.
So do you also see that in the next few years, there'll be a huge demand for lawyers working in the area of income tax?
Correct. That's why I said there are two things there with regard to the topic that you touched on. One is, yes, we do find Inland Revenue Department going after non-compliant taxpayers in a big way now, and that will continue into the future also. And because of the manner in which tax administration is, how do I say, being tax administration is following, there will be broadening of the tax base in Sri Lanka. In other words, there will be many individuals, many corporates that will be coming into the tax net, and there will be, because of that, there will be many tax disputes also. So my first advice is there is this perception, okay, the lawyers are not paying taxes, the doctors are not paying taxes, the architects are not paying taxes. The first thing is, keep in mind, it's very important to, if you are a practitioner, whoever basically you are a professional, you have to get your TIN registration, and if you are liable, then open the income tax file and start paying income taxes. So that's a very important one, and keep in mind, because of the techniques that are being used now, there will be non-compliant taxpayers will be penalized because of the system that is there, right? I'll give a bit of an idea with regard to that. The laws since law in Sri Lanka has changed, administration has changed in such a way that there's something called automatic periodical bulk information provision by certain institutions in Sri Lanka. For instance, banks are compelled periodically to send the information with regard to their customers to the Inland Revenue officers, to the Inland Revenue Department. Earlier, the rule used to be uh, with regard to a specific person, when a query is made by the IRD officers, let's say the bank had to submit information. But now the rules have changed. There's no requirement for the Inland Revenue to ask but the banks, say the land registry, motor vehicles registrar, etc. So many institutions have to send the information periodically in the bulk form. So because of this change of tax administration, non-compliant taxpayers are going to get highlighted very easily. So that's first aspect of it, right? So I'm telling everyone to register for taxation. The other aspect of it, because of, say, Department of Inland Revenue has been given targets to meet. So that is why we find this efficiency that is taking place. And because of that, so from the point of view of the IRD also, IRD officers also, there could be times where they go beyond the law in relation to collection of the taxes. That is where the lawyer's role comes in to ensure justice is preserved with regard to the tax process followed by the IRD, Inland Revenue Department, as well as the correct tax amount is being paid or collected and the taxpayers are not overcharged. And where it happens, the lawyers have to come forward and get involved in negotiations or the appeals or litigation, etc. So there is going to be a huge expansion of tax appeals and tax litigation in Sri Lanka. Yes, right. The question that you asked is important because the number of tax lawyers in Sri Lanka right now is not sufficient for the demand that is going to come in the future. So that's why I said at the beginning itself that a parent should not be telling their children, become a doctor, become an engineer, become a lawyer, but must be telling to become a tax lawyer. That is what is going to be, that's going to be the trend into the future.
Thank you. And once again, we would like to request if any of the participants have questions for Mr. Suresh Perera, they could also post their questions on the chat box on Zoom. And in the meanwhile, while we receive questions, I would also like to just ask you, sir. Now, you have been a practitioner for many years. Are there any interesting, instances where you have seen lawyers coming into the corporate field, maybe excelling in their corporate field, and also going abroad and maybe excelling as a corporate lawyer abroad? Are there any instances where we can take example of?
Yeah, I won't go to the extent of the corporate lawyers. Because what I have seen is basically the tax lawyers. Yes, the first point, I remember 25 years back when I joined the accountancy firm to do tax. I think I was one of the rare exceptions to go against the norm. But nowadays, we can see when you look at the law college or the law faculty, most of them are following accountancy qualifications while studying law. And also when you look at the firms, you can see double qualified or what you call the multidisciplinary lawyers practicing a lot in many firms. So that trend keeps increasing. At the same time, I observe that there is another trend that is taking place, that these multidisciplinary tax consultants, not that even the other tax consultants also, finding opportunities in other countries. I mentioned specifically with regard to the Middle East. I can see many of the colleagues who worked with me, who started after me, finding very lucrative, interesting opportunities in other countries because of the legal qualifications and the experience that they have gained. So this is why I mentioned there are the opportunities that are there in the field of taxation outside Sri Lanka is something that you should focus on while you are now, when you are mapping your future, when you are young now. So there's a big opportunity that is taking place.
And sir, now there is one question in the chat box. Do you think that maybe a young lawyer or a law student, just to get a feel of law of taxation or just to get a feel of being a corporate lawyer, are there any internship opportunities available in the corporate sector, available in tax consultancy firms, which a young lawyer or a law student can follow? And do you think that following such an internship would give them a deep insight into what takes place in the activities of a corporate lawyer or a tax consultant lawyer?
Yeah, so two different things. So when you say tax, basically, if you want to get a feel with regard to that, yes, there are so many accountancy firms in Sri Lanka. All those accountancy firms have their tax divisions. Yes, I'm sure in all those institutions, there will be vacancies, provided you have the correct aptitude. That's one. But at the same time, keep in mind, when you join also, at the beginning, when you join, say during the first 6 months, you will be doing sometimes the tax calculation or going to the Inland Revenue Department, etc. After some time, once you gather the knowledge, the competency, you will be going to the next stage of tax planning, writing tax opinions, international taxation, transfer pricing, that kind of areas. So it takes a little bit of time, but yes, that's the best way I would say to carve your future, how to say, to get your future going if you want to go into the taxation field. If you are lucky, sometimes, okay, you want to do only the, say, the tax appeals litigation. In some cases, yes, you might be able to say that, okay, I want to do only this area, but not the other area, kind of negotiation depending on the vacancy that is there, opportunity.
Okay. So I think with that, we can conclude today's session. So once again, I would like to thank Mr. Suresh Perera, attorney at law, for taking time off to join in and educate our young lawyers and also law students who are joining in for this session. And I would also like to thank all the participants for being here and everyone who have joined in through YouTube and also through other media. With that, I would like to hand over back to Isuri.
Thank you, Shehara. This brings us to the end of episode 1 of the webinar on why the corporate sector. I thank our esteemed guest, Mr. Suresh Perera and Mr. Shehara Herath, for the fruitful and educational discussion and for dedicating your time to be here with us and sharing your insights. I thank the BASL Webinars and Legal Symposiums Committee for their dedication and hard work in organizing this insightful webinar. And last but not least, I thank all of you who have joined us for this session today through various platforms and for the interactive discussions that we've had. Thank you, and I hope you all have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.